Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to walk us through reading the preface of Unbroken and then doing a word analysis of Lauren Hillenbrand's choices for her word choice or for her diction. I'm going to read the whole preface though, because it is amazing and is really well written, and it gives you an idea of the suspense and just the amazing and phenomenal life that Louis Zamperini lived. Um, so the first thing we do, according to our directions as we're doing our word analysis, is read through the page or read through the passage that was provided. Then we'll have a link for an audio recording. But I'm going to read it for us first. And then we're not going to reread, but we'll just reread the part of the section with the words that I chose to highlight and do an analysis of the diction. So she begins up top. She writes, all Louis Zamperini could see in every direction was water. It was June 23rd, 1943. Somewhere on the endless expanse of the Pacific Ocean, Army, Air Force, bombardier, and Olympic runner Louis Zamperini lay across a small raft, drifting westward. Slumped alongside him was a sergeant, one of his plane's gunners. On a separate raft, tethered to the first, lay another crewman, a gash zigzagging across his forehead. Their bodies, burned by the sun and stained yellow from the raft dye, had winnowed down to skeletons. Sharks glided in lazy loops around them, dragging their backs along the rafts, waiting. The men had been adrift for 27 days. Borne by an equatorial current, they had floated at least 1,000 miles deep in the Japanese controlled waters. The rafts were beginning to deteriorate into jelly and gave off a sour, burning odor. The men's bodies were pocked with salt sores, and their lips were so swollen that they pressed into their nostrils and chins. They spent their days with their eyes fixed on the sky, singing White Christmas, muttering about food. No one was even looking for them anymore. They were alone on 64 million square miles of ocean. A month earlier, 26-year-old Zamperini had been one of the greatest runners in the world, expected by many to be the first to break the 4-minute mile, one of the most celebrated barriers in sport. Now his Olympian's body had wasted to less than 100 pounds, and his famous legs could no longer lift him. Almost everyone outside of his family had given him up for dead. On that morning of the 27th day, the men heard a distant, deep strumming. Every airman knew that sound. Pistons. Their eyes caught a glint in the sky. A plane high overhead. Zamperini fired two flares and shook powder dye into the water, enveloping the rafts in a circle of vivid orange. The plane kept going, slowly disappearing. The men sagged. Then the sound returned, and the plane came back into view. The crew had seen them. With arms shrunken a little more than bone and yellowed skin, the castaways waved and shouted, their voices thin from thirst. The plane dropped low and swept alongside the rafts. Zamperini saw the profiles of the crewmen, dark against bright blueness. There was a terrific roaring sound. The water in the rafts themselves seemed to boil. It was machine gun fire. This was not an American rescue plane. It was a Japanese bomber. The men pitched themselves into the water and hung together under the rafts, cringing as bullets punched through the rubber and sliced effervescent lines in the water around their faces. The firing blazed on, then sputtered out as the bomber overshot them. The men dragged themselves back onto the one raft that was still mostly inflated. The bomber banked sideways, circling toward them again. As it leveled off, Zamperini could see the muzzleness of the machine guns aimed directly at them. Zamperini looked toward his crewmates. They're too weak to go back in the water. As they lay down on the floor of the raft, hands over their heads, Zamperini splashed overboard alone. Somewhere beneath him, the sharks were done waiting. They bent their bodies in the water and swam towards the man under the raft. And then stops. That's great, isn't it? All right, so this is just one aspect of his life. We are going to conduct a word analysis or look at Hillenbrand's diction and her choices that she made, and we'll go through it together. So we are only going to focus on this passage here. So this will be the part we focus on. I'm going to choose to focus on the word strumming and just do an analysis of that one word. So she writes, on that morning of the 27th day, the men heard a distant, deep strumming. So the first task is to define that word, which is called the denotation, fancy way of saying define. So the literal definition, the denotation of the word is, okay, now if you work smart, not hard, you can always double click and then Oops, gotta move me out of the way here. You can double click and then just define the word here. So the literal definition is to play, as in a guitar or similar instrument, by sweeping the thumb or plectrum up or down across the strings. No idea what a plectrum is, but I know what a string is, so we're okay. All right, so that's what strum means. So we have our little definition. So now the question is, does the word have more of a positive, a negative, or neutral connotation or association? So what do you think? All right, hopefully you said it has a positive connotation because you associate it with, or makes me think of playing an instrument, like playing a guitar, relaxing, entertainment, more of a something you would do for fun than like a task or chore. So it just reminds me of a calming, peaceful activity or hobby. Now, she could have written anything there. So it says an alternative that she could have used, and as compared to that, is instead of strumming, she could have said buzz or buzzing. There's a deep buzzing. However, it would not have been the same or as powerful because buzzing sort of has a negative connotation. It makes me think of bees, which is not what we are going for, which will lead us into our next question. So the mood of the excerpt is blank. Okay, so hopefully you chose hopeful as we're looking at this. As you look at all the words that led up to that mood, strumming, glint, enveloping, sagged, or vivid, those are all more positive words. And they, like the brightness of the vivid, gives you a little bit more of a hopeful mood. But now we are only going to focus on the one word strumming. So the question is, how does strumming help to develop this hopeful or light or happier, more hopeful kind of mood? So what do you think? How does strumming help to develop this hopeful mood? Okay, so for me, strumming develops a hopeful mood because it does give you this idea of more of a recreational activity or playing something innocent and youthful like your guitar, like you're strumming your guitar, or you're just playing. So it's associated with joy, to play a musical instrument. So that's how it helps to develop this mood. Now, the other question is ask you about her purpose. So now in this passage, it's a preface. This is trying to sell the book. This would be the first thing you read. So if Hillenbrand's purpose in the preface is to engage the reader and develop a sense of suspense, then this word choice helps her accomplish that purpose because, what do you think? Okay, so now for me, I think that strumming helps develop this sense of suspense because looking at the longer passage, she really sets this all up like they're about to be saved. We're cheering for them, like that's it, they're done. They went through all this adversity, their lips are just dry, they've lost all this weight. Zamperini had so much skill and ability and talent, everything was going right. Now he's almost dying, but it's okay, he is safe. There's a glint in the sky, the vivid orange. And then the strumming, the deep strumming, it sounds like music. They hear this plane coming and it sounds like music to their ears. They are safe. And where the suspense comes in is we are so hopeful, we're cheering for them, but then we slowly realize the other plane is an enemy plane and they're shooting at them as the water and the raft seem to boil because they're being hit with bullets. So that's how it helps to develop her purpose. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what yours can look and sound like. Hopefully this helps a little bit as you're going to move into your own analysis. And then my son has started to play piano. So apparently it's time for me to go. He was strumming the keys. He says, hi, that's what I did. Okay, if you have any questions, email Miss Posey or I. We're always happy to help and reply. But happy word analysis tomorrow.